Thank you so much. Joining me now to discuss Republican Minority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana, a close ally and confidant of President Trump. Congressman, good to see you again. You're speaking tonight at the convention. The theme is Land of Promise. What do you plan to say?
Well, Jake, what I want to talk about, and good to be with you, by the way, I really want to just share what President Trump is like when you're working with him. I mean, I get to see how much he cares about people. I get to see how much he's fought for and delivered for the hardworking men and women, especially the forgotten men and women of this country as we work to rebuild the middle class, obviously getting through COVID. Some of the things he's done even with Operation Warp Speed to help make sure that every federal agency is focused fully, removing red tape to address this crisis and then ultimately rebuild the economy again. And obviously I've seen some personal examples of his kindness and his caring. When I was shot, I know it was the night of the shooting. He came to the hospital with Melania, the First Lady, and consoled my wife and was just wonderful to my family in those tough times. That's a side of the president a lot of people don't really get to see. And frankly, I think it's something important for people to know about because that's the kind of person he really is. It's not what you always see on TV. It's the person behind the scenes and how much he fights for and cares about people that I get to see.
How is your recovery going, Congressman?
It's going really well. I appreciate that. It's a little over 3 years after the shooting. Had 9 surgeries and the miracles of modern medicine, a lot of miracles that happen along the way. But I still do physical therapy about 2 days a week to build back strength in my left leg where the bulk of the nerve damage still is. So working to get better. I finally dropped the crutches at the end of last year. So
oh, wow,
walking without crutches and getting better all the time. Appreciate it.
That's great, Congressman. Good to hear that. Republicans are not adopting a new platform for the 2020 convention, instead relying on the 2016 platform, and as well as some rather vague language put out by the Trump campaign yesterday. What do you say to critics who suggest that this is emblematic of the party in the Trump era, that it's really more about President Trump and his personality than it is about what the Republican Party stands for?
Well, any platform really does reflect the points that the candidate wants to make in any given election. And so for President Trump, you saw what he ran on in 2016. And frankly, he's worked to deliver on so many of those things. And obviously there's more we want to do. And he lists that in the platform. It really is focusing on creating jobs, fighting for life, and keeping our communities safe. Those are all things mentioned in the platform. It's interesting, if you look at the Democrat platform, they mention Donald Trump more than they mention jobs or more than they mention racial equality. So I think that negative focus on the Democrat platform really shows that they're not fighting for people. They just don't like the president. But the president has been fighting and delivering for those forgotten men and women. And I think they're going to be there for him in November, which is why I think he's going to get reelected this November.
This is an opportunity for the president, and we've been told by people associated with the campaign and with the convention that the president plans on delivering an optimistic vision. It really is an opportunity for him to try to win over people who might like some of the things that he's done but don't like his style. But today, when he accepted your party's nomination, he delivered kind of a rambling address. He told a number of lies about mail-in voting and about Obama and Biden. Does that concern you at all? Would you not rather have a president who is disciplined and optimistic as opposed to one who is kind of rambling and just doing his list of grievances?
Well, first of all, to call that lies is just not accurate. I've seen voter fraud up close. Look, in Louisiana, we put an election commissioner in jail because he was stealing votes and running fraudulent elections, and we cleaned that office up, by the way. So I've seen how it happens, and it's
but that wasn't by vote by mail.
To this day.
But
if you mail ballots, Jake, to every single person on the rolls, any Secretary of State will tell you you'll have over a 10% error rate, because that's millions of ballots, by the way, that will just be out there because people move around. Some people actually are on the rolls illegally. That's why
only 9 states are doing that, though. Only 9 states are mailing ballots to every registered voter.
Jake. That battle's not. Pelosi is still trying to make that a national law, which would be reckless. It would be a recipe for disaster.
That's not happening this election.
Fight for the sanctity of the vote. We're not.
That's not happening this election.
Pelosi's tried to make it.
But Congressman, look, there are 9 states that do universal mail-in, which is mailing a ballot to everybody who's registered. Your fellow Congressman Garcia, Republican from a district in California, he was elected in one of these states, in one of these 9 states, California, sending out vote by mail. He won. Utah has vote by mail. They've had it for years. I mean, there really just is not evidence that there is widespread fraud. Of course there's voter fraud. There's been voter fraud as long as there's been voting all over the world. But there's no evidence that there is widespread voter fraud because of vote by mail.
Well, and I'm glad you acknowledge there is fraud. What we've fought against, and President Trump's been vocal about this, is a national mandate that you have to do that because some states might be better equipped than others to have a more wide-scale
there is no national
voter
mandate,
mailing in Louisiana. But no, there's not. But do you not know? I'll send you the bill. Pelosi just tried to do this the last 3 months. She's literally brought bills to the floor to try to mandate that, and we blocked it. But that's where they want to go. What we would like to see is if somebody wants to request a ballot, we'll probably in Louisiana have 25% of our ballots cast by mail. Want to make sure that system's intact. You saw the Postmaster General testify today that they'll be able to handle that volume. They've got enough money to go through the middle of next year if we don't give them another dime. So they're going to be able to handle that volume. And if some other states do it more widespread, as long as they can make sure that those votes are counted that are legal votes. You don't want votes that are illegal coming in. I've typically voted in person. We had an election in New Orleans about a week and a half ago, and I voted in person. Every now and then I vote by mail if I'm going to be out of town, but usually I like going. I like bringing my family. It's something we all do as a family because it's a great part of democracy to walk in there, vote.
My only point is you have voted by mail just like President Trump, just like Vice President Pence, just like Kayleigh McEnany.
That ought to be there for every voter who requests it. You shouldn't mail a ballot to every single person that's not even legally on a roll. Right now, you've got, again, with people moving around, most Secretary of States will tell you over 10% of their voting rolls are people that are not living at that address anymore, and yet ballots will be sitting out there, millions of ballots. Why don't we make sure we protect the sanctity of the vote?
Right. Of course, we all believe in the sanctity of the ballot, but my point is that they've been doing this in Utah with no problems for years. I think since 2012 or 2013.
And that's Utah's prerogative. It shouldn't be a federal mandate, though, Jake. And believe me, Pelosi's filed the bill. I will get you the bill.
That's a separate debate, though, sir. That's a separate debate. You're talking
about. We've had the debate, and the president's been engaged in that debate, saying we shouldn't mandate that federally.
President Trump is saying that he has literally said today that if the Democrats win, it's because it was rigged and the election was stolen. An incredibly irresponsible thing to say. The secretaries of state in two of the states that have universal vote by mail, Washington State and Oregon, are Republicans. California had vote by mail. Your colleague, Congressman Garcia, was elected that way. Nevada, the Secretary of State, is a Republican. Utah, they have vote by mail. My only point is, I understand you don't like the idea of universal vote by mail as Nancy Pelosi is proposing it, but I'm just talking about the existing policies and that President Trump is saying that they are going to be corrupt inherently, and there's no evidence of that.
Well, and I didn't see this president's speech today, but what I've heard him talk about in the past is making sure that if somebody is voting, whether it's in person or by mail, that you're protecting the sanctity of that vote. And picture ID is something that we require in Louisiana. A lot of states have that too. Pelosi's bill, by the way, would have taken that away, the verification of the ID. So let's make sure if somebody wants to request a ballot, they have that right, and we're going to protect it. And by the way, the post office ensured that that will be prioritized. They've got all the money they need to carry that out properly. I think that was one of the things that was at issue over the weekend, where some people were trying to make an issue where it didn't exist. Those ballots are ready to go if somebody wants to mail in their vote, or if they want to go in person, I would hope that would be available to them as well.
Minority Whip Steve Scalise, Republican of Louisiana. Always good to see you, sir, and it's great news about your recovery. Keep it up.